Hello, I'm the Pink Phantom, and this is my podcast. Join me as I delve into the world of games and gaming, and especially old school RPGs. Together, let's voyage into the astral realm and check out my phantom thoughts. In this episode, an announcement, a question, a rant, blog posts, you name it, it might be in here. Well, no, really, just basically those things. And more from the world of the Dragon Slayers. This is a quick aside before my next sort of quick aside, which will be next because it's next. The prompts for RPG A Day 2025 have been put out. You can find those on the Casting Shadows and Autocratic with a K at the end blogs. There are links to those in the show notes. And also those bloggers in question who are the ones that put out the RPG A Day prompts every year have an interview with Jason over on the Nerds RPG Variety Cast. It's the most recent episode as of this recording. There is a link to that in the show notes as well. So the prompts are out. Take a look at them. Get ready. And let's get pumped for RPG A Day 2025. Yeah. So a couple of quick things before starting the podcast proper, I guess. This is just a couple of random thoughts in my head. One of them is, are you ever just at your computer and you're listening to a YouTube video or something and you're doing something else and you go to hit the tab to go back to the YouTube video, and instead of hitting the tab in a way that it goes to the tab, you hit to where it mutes the YouTube video? Somehow in just the last, I don't know if this last few weeks, the last couple of months, or just, I have become just incredibly accurate at doing that. Just incredibly accurate at, I'm going to click back over to the video to watch the video portion of whatever I'm listening to and just silence. It doesn't go back and it's just silence. Does that happen to anybody else or is that just me? Anyway, so the other thing is, one of the, I guess, genres of YouTube videos I watch is alternate history. And I used to read a lot of alternate history novels. I haven't been reading as many lately. But it just seems like more and more alternate history, and maybe they've always been this way, and it's just now just annoying the crap out of me. Number one is the long wind up to the actual meat of the video. Because when I click on it, it's like, what if Germany won World War One? Okay, great. That's what I came for. And some videos will be, more than half will be setting up the actual history, just going through like decades of actual history to set up the alternate history. I mean, number one, it doesn't take that long. Okay, or you can intersperse it in between what you're saying is different. Okay, here's where I'm going with this. Here's what's different about it. It doesn't have to be half the video. It shouldn't be half the video. If your video is, what if Germany won World War One? What if, the American Revolution failed? What have you? That should be the meat of the video. That should be well more than half of the video should be that part of it. The setup shouldn't take that long. Because number one, a lot of the people that are watching alternate history videos and they click on one that's about a specific topic, it's because they know something about that topic. They want to see your take on what that topic is if it went differently. And the other thing, and there's a couple of videos that I watch, a couple of creators I watch that I'm seriously considering unsubscribing because they just won't stop doing this, is constantly throughout the video just harping on how unrealistic it is. This is unrealistic. This is unrealistic. This is unrealistic. Okay, if you feel you have to put that disclaimer out there, just do it at the beginning. Just do it at the beginning. Take a couple of minutes, do it at the beginning, and then go on with it. Or if you want to go all the way to the end and say, this is why I think it's unrealistic, why this didn't happen. Because, I say why this didn't happen, because they're all unrealistic. Every alternate history video is unrealistic because they didn't happen. They didn't happen. What is realistic is what happened. History is what is realistic. Alternate history is not realistic. No matter how plausible you may make it, it may be a very plausible alternate history that if these couple things switched around, this would be an entirely different outcome. But it's not realistic because the history has already happened and it didn't happen that way. So that's the big one. And then one more that just occurred to me is they'll go through all this rigmarole and they'll do all the big long setup and talk about how unrealistic it is, and then go through their session. And then at the end, the alternate history they ended up with is not that much different than what the history was. I mean, some of the most popular, obviously, are World War II, especially the war in Europe. What if the Nazis did this, that, or the other thing? And almost to a video, they end up with Germany loses. They just lose a little differently. It takes a few more months. It takes a few more years. It takes a few more days. What's the point? What is the point of that? How is that really alternate history? That's, because that is something we do see sometimes in actual history, is where we got our facts partially wrong and something was different that we thought was, well, it went along this line. Well, that's not what happened. It went along this line, but it ended up in the same place. It started in the same place. It ended in the same place. It just, the events were a little different order, or they were a little altered. I just, no. If you're not going to make a change, if there's not going to be a good, solid change at the end, why are you even doing the scenario? Okay, rant over. Alternate history rant over. Let's get on with the rest of the show. So the first thing I want to talk about here is another bundle. Last time I talked about Humble Bundle and Bundle of Holding. And for this, shout out to Tinker's Tavern, Tinkar from Tinkar's Tavern blog and YouTube channel. And I don't think he does the podcast anymore. He used to do podcasts, but I think he switched everything over to his YouTube channel, Discord, all that good stuff. And he's constantly, if you don't follow Tinkar, I need to put a link to some of his socials, because he's always covering different things in the hobby, and he does it on a very consistent daily basis. But he pointed out an RPG PDF bundle that was on Fanatical. Now, Fanatical, usually you go on there, you find it's mainly computer games, video games. As far as games, they do have books, but a lot of those are programming books, because I've bought stuff from there as well. But he was talking about a Dungeon Crawl Classics bundle that's currently on Fanatical. And I went over there and looked, and lo and behold, there were 2 more RPG bundles on there. There's a Twilight 2000 bundle, the Mongoose version of Twilight 2000, and there's also a bundle for Scarred Lands, which is a setting for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. And Fanatical, they have, I mean, the bundle of Holding and Humble Bundle prices are usually very good for what you're getting, for the content you're getting, but Fanatical prices are really, really low. So if you go over there, even if you already own Dungeon Crawl Classics, there's a bunch of adventures you can get depending on what level you back it at, but you can get a really good deal if there's some adventures that you don't have. I mean, if there's one adventure you don't have that says that you say, I've heard good things about this, I've always wanted to play it, or had it, in my library so I could play it or mine it for material or what have you, you can probably what you would pay for the bundle be worth the price of the one thing. So I just wanted to mention that. The other thing I want to talk about was some blog posts that caught my eye this week. One of them is from Grognardia. He's started a Substack it's more for gaming stuff. He's producing games here. It's called producing a game called The Secrets of Shah Arthan, I believe. I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce it, but he's producing there. And one of his first blog posts is just it's kind of a travelogue of just a section of that world. I really like travelogues. I've got a book that I've had forever called The Transgalactic Guide to Solar System M17 that I got back when I was like in high school that I just love just because it takes this system and it's got these I think it's 5 planets and it goes into detail about like like your visitor going on some, cruise essentially and you're visiting all these planets, all these worlds and they all have their different inhabitants. They're all inhabited. It talks about their culture and what's going on those worlds. And it was that kind of thing is always that and sort of the world building things like where they give a timeline and things that happen on a timeline for a given world or what have you. Those things have always been interesting to me. And so this little piece of coming from uh, the Grognardia blog uh, was just something that caught my eye. I found interesting the way it was presented, and he actually credited a reader that gave that suggestion. That's the way he should present it. Another one is from the blog Methods and Madness, uh, called the post is Super Simple XP System Part 2, where I guess I didn't go back to read Part 1, where I guess he tried this before and it got more complex than he wanted. And it was the very simple suggestion was 1 XP equals 1 GP gold piece, and hit dice, each hit dice equals 100 XP. So if you have a monster that's 3 hit dice, then that should give you 300 XP, and if you hit treasure wise, that should give you 300 gold pieces. If you're using like the gold for XP system, so just a simple system, and that was it. Those were the 2 steps, and he talked a lot about kind of the process he went through to get there, and how he had started off simply and gotten more complex and decided to go back to this. And so it was just a real interesting to read the thought process and see what he thought was, which, I mean, it's certainly less complex than what Gary Gygax did in the AD&D GM's Dungeon Master's Guide for figuring out XP just for monsters to say, 1 hit dice is 100 XP. That's pretty straightforward, and it still leaves you some room to work with, especially if you want to do it treasure wise. You can decide what kind of treasure would match up with that creature, and do it there because it doesn't just have to be cash. It can be all kinds of luxury goods or what have you. And then the third blog post is making low levels awesome from the Welcome to the Death Trap blog. And in it, the author discusses how it seems like a lot of times the lower levels are not as exciting. The potential adventures or what have you available, the potential quests, potential goals are not as exciting or involved in the world, and just making it so that you know there's the same kind of things available at first level that you would get at 5th level, 7th level, 10th level, what have you. I think for people who are more used to a sandbox style, that's probably something that's already in place where, because, the sandbox style of gaming, you're not really that interested in what the levels of the PCs are. You just try to make sure there's enough information in the world that the players know what potential hooks their PCs can handle at that moment. And there's a time to walk, and there's time to walk away. There's a time to run. Now I have Kenny Rogers song stuck in my head. I will give fair warning. The author does say that he believes that PCs should essentially cap out at 10th level. So I don't think he's someone that's promoter of domain play and that kind of thing, which tends to kick in round about that time, depending on the system. But yeah, those were some blogs that caught my eye, and I will have links to all those posts in the show notes. So if any of that sounded interesting, take a look. So this will be, as promised, the battle report between the Raging Snouts, Orc tribe, and the dervishes that are attacking their fort lair. Initially, the dervishes tried to use an insect plague spell to force the orcs to drop their drawbridge gate and come out and get chewed up by a blade barrier. However, unbeknownst to them, the orc leader, Chief Porcus, has a Ring of Gax artifact, which has a once per day wish power, which he used to disperse the insects. So now they are simply attacking the fort, attempting to batter down the gate and get in and utilize their spellcasters and bowmen to suppress the defenders while they're doing so. So, in organizing this mass battle, one thing I did is I decided that if the orcs won initiative, that would give their bowmen on the catwalk near the top of the wall opportunity to fire their bows and then duck down, so they would get more cover that way. They would have about 90% cover if they won initiative versus having about 50% cover when they did not have initiative, where they were basically being caught in the process of firing, and that there's ballistas on the corners and towers, and that those crews would have about 75% cover in those towers while they're manning those ballistas. In addition to short bows and crossbows, the orcs also have spears available to them. So throughout the course of the battle, they would be having some people on the walls throwing spears at some of the closer dervishes, particularly those trying to batter down the gate. But although it would take time to essentially reload to have more spears passed up to them. When I was doing the battle, just to keep things organized, I adopted a missile magic melee structure to each round rather than doing everything for one side and everything for the other side, depending on who won initiative. Although I did, in the case of spell casting, take into account the initiative roll and the weapon speed and the time to casting time for spells to see if spells will be spoiled, because that would play a role. I wanted to try to essentially summarize the summary. I did organize the results of the battle round by round. It was a rather long battle round wise. It was a 15 round battle. Great deal of that had to do with the fact that dervishes don't check morale. That's part of their entry in the monster manual. And the orcs fighting from inside the fort, a lot of their forces not exposed to danger. So the chance of them reaching the point where they would have to check morale was a lot less, because they have a lot less orcs in danger at any given time. The orcs managed to kill several of the lance units with their bows, because they were targeting mainly those that were approaching the wall. Uh, some of the dervish bowmen got some hits. They only managed to kill one orc. Their crossbows missed everybody completely. Their short bows did gain some hits, however. Their casters mostly cast protection and buff spells, with their 7th level and one of their 3rd level magic users casting shield, and their clerics casting bless or prayer. They have a 5th level cleric, an 11th level cleric, and a 7th level cleric. Their other magic user, 3rd level magic user, cast Stinking Cloud on a group of the orc crossbows, and only one of those orcs managed to make their save, putting them out of action for a couple of rounds. Well, at least the part of the group that they could get with the Stinking Cloud. In the second round, the orcs won initiative again, and this time the two groups of bowmen started targeting each other. Crossbows targeting crossbows, and the orc short bows targeting the dervish composite bows. And I did give the orcs a little more range on their bows because they were standing on a high wall. So it ended up that the short bows and the composite short bows ended up being roughly the same range. And then the light crossbows of the orcs had a slight range advantage on the dervish light crossbows. So in the bow exchange, the orcs managed to kill 3 versus suffering 1 loss of their own, and they managed to inflict injury on the 11th level cleric, which is a pretty good shot. The crossbow exchange of fire, the orcs got several hits, including one on a 3rd level magic user, but didn't get any kills. The dervish crossbows did manage to kill one of the orc crossbowmen. The ballista missed their targets, and the heavy crossbow targeted the short bows but fell short. The light catapult targeted the crossbowman and missed long right into the 3rd level magic user, killing him. Insert Wile E. Coyote clip here. The orc chief attempted to use another power of the Ring of Gax to charm one of the 5th level fighters in the leadership group of the dervishes and succeeded. The 7th level cleric in that group attempted to cast Hold Person on the fighter, but the fighter saved, and the 11th level and 5th level clerics and the 3rd level fighter also in that group attempted to subdue the charmed fighter, but they all missed. And the end of round bow fire exchange between the orc short bows and the dervish composite short bows didn't yield any kind of hits or kills. Round 3, the initiative was tied at 2. The exchange of bow fire at the beginning of the round had 2 archers on each side killed. The orcs also injured the 7th level magic user and a different 5th level fighter. The orc and dervish crossbows also exchanged fire and each killed 2 of the other, but the orcs also killed the other 3rd level magic user. One thing I forgot to mention, in the last round, the 7th level magic user killed 7 orcs with a fireball spell. And I believe I just misspoke that the ballista fired in the last round. This round was the first time the ballista fired, and they hit 2 different fighters, a 4th level fighter and a 6th level fighter with different light lance units that were near the walls. The 7th level magic user cast Minor Glove of Invulnerability on himself. The 11th level cleric attempted to dispel magic, and the 5th level cleric attempted Hold Person against the charmed fighter, but the dispel magic was spoiled by one of the bow fire attacks, and the fighter saved against the hold spell. The orc chief cast haste on himself, 1 ballista crew, and a group of the short bow archers that were nearby. So they would be firing 4 times a round from this point on. The charmed 5th level fighter hit the 11th level cleric. The 5th level cleric and 3rd level fighter attacked the 5th level charmed fighter, but only the 3rd level fighter managed to hit. A group of medium lancer dervishes using a ram managed to do some damage to the drawbridge gate. The orc guards around the gate threw spears at the dervishes with the ram, but they all missed. And the end of the round bow fire exchange, the orcs killed 2 dervishes and injured the 7th level magic user again. The dervishes killed 4 orcs. Round 4, the Raging Snouts won initiative again. This time, the opening of the round of bow fire favors the orcs, 5 kills to 2, and another arrow injuring the 7th level magic user. The orc crossbows killed 3 to losing none, and the hasted ballista fired again, further injuring the 4th level fighter. The 7th level magic user rides over to the dervish crossbows, to try to recover the Staff of the Magi dropped by the dead 3rd level magic user over there. The 11th level and 7th level cleric tried Hold Person on the charmed fighter, but the fighter saved against both. The charmed fighter attacked the 11th level cleric and missed. The orc leader charms a 4th level fighter who charges a group of medium lancers and kills 2. The 5th level cleric attacks the charmed 5th level fighter and misses. The group of medium lancers does damage to the drawbridge. And then the end of round bow exchange favors the orcs again, with killing the last of the lightly armored dervish short bowmen. They have some heavier armored bowmen in chain over near the leaders, and that bowfire also injured a 5th level and 3rd level fighter that was with the group of short bows. Round 5, the initiative is tied at 4. The orc short bows shift their aim to the chain armored dervish bowmen, killing 3 while only losing 1. The crossbow exchange has 1 dead orc and 1 dead dervish, and the magic user 7 is killed before he can use the staff and the magi. The 2 ballista both fire at fighters that are in groups near the wall, killing one of the 4th level fighters and injuring another. The orc chief attempts to charm the 6th level fighter that's with the dervishes, but fails. And he was also going to try to attempt to charm the 7th level magic user, but he died from the bowfire. In the battle within the dervish leadership, the 5th level fighter injures the 11th level cleric and is able to withstand the rest of the group's attacks. The charmed 4th level fighter kills another medium lancer with no injury in return. The other group of medium lancers continues to damage the drawbridge. 3 of those are killed by orc guards throwing spears. And at the end of the round, the bow exchange has the orc short bows hitting the 11th level cleric and killing 3 bowmen, with only 1 orc being killed in return. And this is kind of how the battle goes for the next several rounds, as the orc bowmen tend to get the better of their dervish counterparts, and the orc chief over the next couple rounds manages to charm the other 5th level and the 6th level fighter of the dervishes. The orc guards throw spears every once in a while. The lancers attacking the drawbridge, and the charmed fighters, ever more growing, joining the orcs' cause, do more and more damage to their dervish counterparts. The 11th level cleric is the main target of the charmed 5th level fighter, one of the charmed 5th level fighters, and that fighter ends up either spoiling spells with attacks or resisting spells that are cast on him, and gradually those clerics start running out of spells that they can use against him. In the 8th round, that fighter managed to finally kill the 7th level cleric, keeping him from healing himself, and the blow coming just before he was healed by one of the other clerics in the party. But by the rules of D&D, since he went to negative hit points, even with that immediate healing, he ends up just being in a coma. And the dervishes are very involved in trying to deal with this group of leadership that's now turned on them with bows and crossbows and the occasional ballista shot, injuring what few high-level characters are left in the dervishes' leadership that aren't charmed. And then in round 10, the orcs drop the drawbridge, and large groups of orcs armed with spears and halberds and a group with battle axes enter into the fray. And at this point, the dervishes actually start getting to do some damage as they are engaged in melee. That means that their horses, because they're all mounted, will be involved after the second round of combat commences, as each group begins attacking. But because the orcs have some long weapons, they're able to attack in 2 ranks in most cases. And while this does give the dervishes an opening, because they have the potential to create a melee check a morale check on the orcs. They aren't able to manage to do quite enough damage before the orcs finish subduing all those who were still fighting. And so the battle ends with most of the dervishes slaughtered, the orcs having lost about 50 or so of their number, and a small group of charmed fighters joining the Raging Snout's cause. And of course, all too willing to share their magical weapons and armor, particularly of their comrades, with the orc leadership. And now, of course, these treasure maps are in the hands of these orcs, with at least a couple of them leading to areas that should be nearby. Which could be interesting, because we do also have nearby the hill giants, who are the erstwhile allies of these orcs. There's also, not terribly far away, essentially one hex on the large map away, a group of hobgoblins, although they have suffered some depletion due to their own battles. But yeah, that's basically it. Once the insect plague failed, the dervishes really had a tough time of it. It was still going to take them many more rounds before the drawbridge, after the drawbridge had dropped. Even if it stayed up, it would take them many more rounds to get through it. And by that time, their numbers would have been so diminished that it probably would have been difficult for them to prevail. The orcs did come spilling out at a time when a group of dervish lancers was about to try to deal with some of the try to aid their fellows against some of the charmed fighters that were fighting the individual groups or individual lower level fighters. But I think it's safe to say that the artifact really helped turn the tide of this battle, because while the orcs did seem to be getting the better of it in the various exchanges of bow fire and ballista fire, long range attacks, having those high level fighters come over to their cause really helped out. So that's the end of the battle, and that's the end of this show. So in this episode, I'm going to summarize a few other things that are happening throughout the world that weren't large scale battles. One of these things is in a town sort of on the northern end of the territory in this area, near the Keystone City down in the plains below the foothills here. This town had an encounter with a band of gnolls. Now, this is a different band of gnolls than the two that had an early alliance at the River Keep and that suffered defeat in one or both of a couple of battles. So this group had a neutral followed by a positive reaction. This group of gnolls had a neutral followed by a positive reaction with the townsfolk. And the way I interpreted this was that this town is near where the Oinking Horde, that was also part of that alliance at the River Keep at one point, eventually rejoined its group and its lair group, and then was later on joined by the Thundering Club Ogres that were also part of that alliance. So I think this town has probably been beset with raiding parties and is now gotten its defenses in order and is more prepared. And so that's why the gnolls chose not to attack. Also, the townsfolk probably clued them in that these orcs are raiding the area and probably have a lot of treasure available to them. So maybe the gnolls see the orcs as a better target than the town. So that was just a short little vignette based on the random encounter dice and the reaction roll dice. Checking back in with the Raging Snouts, the day after the battle with the dervishes, a group of vampires came along, a group of 4 vampires, and they were apparently very impressed with what those orcs had accomplished. Probably partly due to the fact that there's a, skeleton and remains of a dead dragon nearby, as well as the fact that they have charmed some of those leaders of that dervish clan that they disposed of. So there was a very favorable reaction there. I didn't view that as the vampires outright joining them, but as being sort of potential allies down the road, since they'll probably be in this area and they may work together at some point. A couple of days later, another ogre tribe, the Arm Rippers, came along, and they also had a very favorable reaction to the orc. And so they have joined the Raging Snouts. So the Raging Snouts now have a group of ogres with them. They've got an alliance with some nearby hill giants, and they have potential allies or maybe partners with a group of vampires that are in the area. And of course, the charmed leadership of the dervishes. And the last thing is over at the Aspis Cave, where the Aspis and the Gold Dragons had a mutual slaughter fest, another group of ogres showed up the day after that battle. They're too big to get into the cave, but they were able to salvage particularly some of the mineral wealth, the coins and the gems and such. And, they collected some of the magic items that had survived, but they don't really know what they are. They're just throwing stuff into sacks. And they rambled the area randomly. I rolled where they went after that, and they actually ended up circling back to the Aspis Cave 4 days later. And the reason this is important is because there was another encounter for that Aspis Cave. This was a group of werewolves. And these wolves were obviously very hungry. They were on the prowl. They had a very negative reaction. And so there was a battle ensued. It was a total of 10 werewolves versus 15 ogres, including their leader. And it was a pretty savage battle. The ogres had the better of it in the early going, but the werewolves just kind of kept surviving, kept hanging in there. They only ended up losing 3 of their 10. 9 of the ogres ended up dying, and they ended up simply surrendering to the werewolves. And this raises an interesting question in that, number one, of the 6 surviving ogres, 4 of them were taken under half their hit points. Only 1 ogre and the chief were not. Well, if you look at the monster manual, any humanoid creature that is reduced to half hit points or less by werewolves or lycanthropes in general become lycanthropes. So this raises the possibility of lycanthrope ogres. And would they develop into full-fledged werewolves? Would they become some kind of hybrid? How would that affect ogres over, say, something like a human? Or would it be any different at all? I'm inclined to think that it would probably be more some kind of hybrid reaction, because they are both 4 hit die creatures. Werewolves are 4+3, ogres 4+1. So the lycanthropy would assert itself, but may not fully. They might not fully transform into wolves. And how would the one other regular ogre and the chief respond when they see their kinsmen, their tribe mates, transforming? Would that perhaps be enough of an event that they would, new reaction check essentially, and the potential to run off and get away from this group? So a lot of good questions there, a little short update, and we'll probably bounce around the world a few more times before we get back to the Dragon Slayers, but we are going to get back to them. So that's going to be the end of the episode. The opening theme of this podcast was Strength of the Titans, and the closing music is Late Night Radio, both from Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. If you have any thoughts or feedback, you can get in touch with me by leaving me a voice message on my Google Voice number, 864-209-1441. That's 864-209-1441. Or through SpeakPipe at www.speakpipe.com/Phantom Thoughts. That's www.speakpipe.com/Phantom Thoughts. Or you can send me a message or an audio file on Discord where I can be found at The Pink Phantom, or through email, phantomthoughtspodcast@gmail.com. That's phantomthoughtspodcast@gmail.com. I don't have to play or read your feedback on the podcast if that is not your preference. Just let me know.